Thank you. I am so excited to be here with you today. It's interesting to speak to a crowd in person and also know that it's going online. I just wanted to first start by saying that if you're watching this presentation, it's likely that you or somebody you know is being affected by the effects of betrayal trauma in relationships, and the pain that you feel is not unnoticed. I also want you to know that if you leave from anything from what I'm going to say today, is that if you're feeling some of the pain that comes from betrayal, there is hope here. There is hope that you won't even be able to reclaim your life back, but that you can have something far richer and far deeper. So I wanted to talk with you guys today a little bit about what your partner is actually saying when you're trying to unravel communication in recovery in your relationships. And to do this, I want to introduce you to Rob and Rachel. Rob and Rachel met about 8 years ago in college. Rachel is a fiery personality. She's got a lot of passion. She lives by her principles, and she believes in standing strong for what she believes. Rob is a good man. Rob has a lot of passion for wanting to provide for his family, for his wife and his children. He wants to live wholeheartedly. He wants to show up and serve other people. They met in college. They fell in love with each other. They realized they had similar principles and similar values. They got married and they started a family. And everything seemed just fine until about a month ago when Rachel found some communication that Rob had been having with another woman. And she came to find out that he had had a secret pornography addiction from before the time they were married, that he had then gone and let that pornography addiction move into something else, and he'd been having an extramarital affair for the last couple of years. And as you can imagine, this devastated Rachel. It blew her world apart. She didn't know what she could trust anymore. She didn't know what she could believe out of Rob's mouth anymore. She didn't know how to go about trying to get over the pain that she felt. On one hand, she was feeling guilty because she was angry and frustrated, and she didn't know how to overcome those feelings. She didn't know she wanted to stay with him. In a sense, her world had been blown apart, and that's where they entered my office. And they're not uncommon from other couples that I see. This is the common thing that happens, where something will happen and disclosure will happen, and you have two good people, because of secrecy and because of hiding, who have a breach of trust, and they're left trying to figure out how to pick up the pieces. Well, Rachel was in my office last week, and she was going through her feelings with me, and she was saying, "Tyler, I feel devastated. I don't think I can think clearly. Every time I'm around him, I get so flooded by emotion that I don't know how to respond to him." And so we sat in my office, and we made up a game plan on how she was going to set some good boundaries with her husband when she went home. And what she was really needing was a little bit of space, a little bit of time away from trying to actually fully jump in and repair the relationship, because she was still trying to get her feet planted emotionally. And so she came up with a game plan that she was going to go home and talk to Rob and say, "Hey, we're going to take a break for just a minute. I need a chance to take care of myself, to get my thoughts clear." And she went home to talk to Rob. And I was all proud of myself. We'd had a great session. She went home feeling encouraged, and she went home to talk to Rob. And later that night, I got a call from Rob. And the first word out of Rob's mouth was an expletive. And he said, "Tyler, what are you teaching my wife? You just taught her how to put up walls and not let her talk to me anymore, and I think we're going to get a divorce because she's going to leave me." Right? How did that happen? Rachel went home to Rob saying, "Hey, I think we need to slow down and take things at a different pace." And Rob heard, "You're rude. What are you doing? You're going to ruin our lives. We're not going to stay together anymore. You're going to leave me." Rob was living from a place of abandonment, a fear of abandonment, and Rachel was simply just asking for some time to get her feet underneath her. And in recovery work with relationships and couples, this is too often the case, because we are built, as was said earlier today so beautifully by Dan Gray, we're built for connection. And when we're built for connection, we want to be in a relationship with somebody, we need safety and trust. And when that trust has been broken, it doesn't allow for us to have the right kind of communication, and the wires get crossed. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about how the wires get crossed, and I want to give a couple of tools on how to uncross the wires if you find yourself in this situation. In order to do this, we have to understand that we as human beings, we have more to us than the simple behaviors that we're putting forward right now with someone that we're interacting with. There's much more under the surface that often doesn't get seen or discussed or shown. And because we don't understand what's going on underneath the surface in the other person that we're interacting with, and sometimes even within ourselves, we miss the opportunity to connect to the things that are most important. So today I'm going to outline for you what the cycle looks like for a couple like Rob and Rachel, and we're going to talk a little bit about how to break that cycle. It all starts with core beliefs at the bottom. These are core beliefs that are sometimes present before we ever get into a relationship. It's usually having something to do with my fear of not being connected with. But those things feel vulnerable, and so we don't allow ourselves to show those to other people, and they feed what we call core emotions. And the core emotions of someone like Rob are shame and fear. He's lived his whole life with a secret addiction, feeling like he wasn't enough. And because of that, he couldn't show anybody what he was actually dealing with. And as a result, he hid those things. And because he hid those things and he put on a stoic face, he has to look like nothing's a big deal, and he shows up as apathetic in his relationship, as if he doesn't care, as if nothing matters. And then he's shut down, or he gets defensive, depending on how close people get to his secrets. And when he shuts down or gets defensive, without knowing it, he goes across all the way down into the wounds that his wife already has. Her fears that she's not loved, her feelings of instability. And as he shuts down trying to protect himself, he's actually inflicting the wound that she's already got inside of her. And because she feels vulnerable and she doesn't know how to cope with those feelings, it fuels her core emotions, which are to be fearful and to feel devalued, because he's not paying attention to her now. Those things are too hard to speak when there's not trust in a relationship. And as a result, it converts to anger, which is the secondary emotion that she feels, because that's the safety emotion, right? We're allowed to be angry in our world, especially when somebody's mistreated us. And then that anger fuels her behavior back towards Rob. And her behavior back might be a criticism, or in this case, it was actually a really well thought out boundary, but it felt like a criticism to Rob because of what his core beliefs already are. This is the common pattern that couples fall into when they're trying to climb out of the hole after betrayal. This isn't just the story of Rob and Rachel. This is the story of hundreds of clients that I've worked with over the years. This is actually the story of me and my wife. 15 years ago, I was Rob. I was hiding. And I couldn't bring myself to share with the person that meant the most to me the things that I struggled with the most. And it took my wife finding something out that devastated her world. She thought she had married a man of integrity. And all of a sudden there was secrecy and hiding and isolation. And as a result, my wife went into all of those places that we just talked about. She felt unloved. She felt devalued. She didn't know how to protect herself. And as a result, she did what she could to protect herself, and she set boundaries. And I remember that as we started to climb out of the hole, she came to me and she said, "We're going to try to figure this out." And I said, "I want to figure it out." And we were two good people trying to figure out how to get through something because I had a problem that I hadn't been willing to talk about. And over the course of the next couple of years, we ran through this cycle over and over and over again. And every time my wife would bring me something that she was hurting with, I would think that I wasn't enough. And I would disappear and I would shy away. And every time I'd shy away, she'd feel like she was being abandoned and that she wasn't loved. And then she'd get frustrated and she'd come to me with something else trying to get me to pay attention. There's a better way. And I was taught this way by my wife. And I want to share it with you, because I've seen it happen in my life, my relationship, and in the life and relationships of many of the clients that I work with. Instead of focusing on the behaviors that we give to each other and having to protect ourselves as a result of the behavior of my partner, I have to learn how to tap into and understand the core beliefs and the core emotions that my partner is feeling. So here's the choice we have, is to stay in the cycle or we can break it. If you find yourself in this cycle, you will recognize the feelings you have when you're down at the bottom. When you recognize those feelings, the first choice is compassion. And compassion first for yourself. The feelings that you're having, the pain that you're feeling, the doubts that you have are valid. Anybody in your shoes would feel the same way. Practice compassion for yourself first, and then compassion for the other. My wife is hurting. I can set aside my desire to run away and hide, and I can start to pay attention to the fact that it's my wife's pain that's actually driving this. Once I choose compassion, I can step into the truth of who I am. I can connect to my core values as a person. My wife did this for me. We were 2 or 3 years into the process. She was struggling. She had a heart of hatred and a heart of frustration. I had done something stupid in the course of our work. I had probably hidden something from her that was pretty trivial. I might have hidden the fact that I had spent some money out of our budget that I didn't tell her about. But it felt the same as the old betrayal to her. And so she took a drive and she left. And of course, when she left, I felt like a failure, and I was sitting at home feeling like a failure, thinking that I was a terrible person, living in shame. And while she was driving in her car, trying to sort through her own feelings, she put on a talk. And the talk happened to reference the story of the Good Samaritan. And as she was driving in her car with this heart full of anger, she heard that story of the Good Samaritan, and something clicked inside of her, and she said, Tyler is the wounded one on the side of the road. He doesn't know what he's doing. And she drove home, and she walked in the door, and she came up to me, and she put her arms on my face. And she looked me straight in the eye. And she said, what you're doing is not okay. And it has to change, but I want you to know that I see you. And I love you. And I believe you're capable of change. She instantly shattered the pattern. It only takes one to shatter the pattern. It doesn't matter who it is. In this case, it was my wife. She was the courageous one. And what she did is she set in motion a new pattern where we could start to see each other. I was allowed to see her pain now. She could see mine, and we could talk at the core emotional level of what we were going through. We could become supportive to one another. So I give you guys this challenge if you're listening to this. If you're struggling with these things yourself, think of the relationship that you're in right now that you're struggling with. And see if it's possible that this might not be true for you. Could a greater miracle take place than for us to look through each other's eyes for an instant? Can you pause? Can you offer yourself some compassion? Can you offer that other person some compassion and look at their life through their eyes and then speak it? I believe that if we're capable of doing these things, we're capable of healing. We're capable of climbing out of the hole. I can tell you right now that my wife and I's relationship has never been better, even when I thought it was good before it all happened. And I see that happen with many of my clients. The truth is there is hope if we can find empathy and understanding for one another. Thank you.